Huh. Last ride in the Mini. Let's go. What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. Each week I take you with me on my adventures into the world of cars, so let's get right into it. So this video is happening a lot sooner than I really expected, and that's this Mini. This is my last drive. I'm going to be selling the car. So I bought the Mini Cooper S 2 years ago, and it was primarily going to be a commuting car. At that point, I had decided I was no longer going to commute into Boston riding the train, which I had done for about 7 or 8 years, and instead I was going to start driving in, or at least driving a large portion of it. And the idea was that I was going to drive to the Wellington station, take the subway from there, and then get into Back Bay downtown. The problem with that is that my Tacoma is not super fuel efficient. It gets 22 miles per gallon on a good day. And what I found was that after the first couple months of doing that it was just too expensive, that I was spending a lot on gas. Every 3 days I was buying pretty much a full tank of gas. The drive in was about 42 miles one way for me. And so you figure that's 84 miles a day times 5 days a week. So you're doing 400 miles pretty much every single week without fail, plus whatever driving you do on the weekend. That wasn't going to cut it. So the whole reason I got this car is I wanted a commuting car. I wanted something that was going to be good on gas, but I also wanted something that was going to be really, really fun to drive. And the Mini has been exactly that. This thing has lived up to everything that I had hoped it would. It's fast, it's fun, it's unassuming, it's comfortable, it's actually spacious inside, and it's been literally the perfect car for that use. So obviously COVID happened. That was, I don't know, I bought the car in August, and so 6 months later, give or take, and I was working from home. And up until this week, I've been working from home for 17 months straight. I did the math the other day. I had to go into the office, and I did the math, and at 17 months, I had not been driving this thing hardly at all. And so the plan was to go back to the office, commute in my car. Once everything opened back up and everybody was vaccinated, go back to the office and continue right where I left off. And after 2 years of ownership of this, I was pretty excited to get more seat time, since the last year has been very little driving. But then something changed. My company offered to anybody who has the right type of job, and for anyone where it would fit with their work, you could apply for permanent work from home. And so I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. And I was on the fence. I mean, I like seeing my friends. I like the in-person interaction at the office. I enjoy all the collaboration and working with other teams. And so I was certainly on the fence, but on the last day of being able to apply for that, I reached out to my manager, and I asked him a little bit about it. I said, would it be an option? How does it work, etc. And he explained everything. I'm like, that actually sounds pretty good. So I applied, and fast forward 2 weeks later to now, and I was just approved this past week for full-time work from home. And so that means I'm not going to be going in anymore, and I'm not going to be commuting, and I'm not going to need the Mini. So at first I was pretty much decided that I was going to keep the Mini, and this would just be for my day-to-day when I go out and if I drive. But the more I thought about it, that doesn't make a lot of sense, at least right now. I'm barely driving as it is, other than on weekends, and it's generally just for fun, whether we're going off on an excursion or we take a vacation, that kind of thing. Day-to-day, I mean, I'm home 24/7. Other than going out to walk my dog and doing yard work and stuff, I'm really not going anywhere. And I still have a loan on this car, so I still owe about $12,800, something like that, just under 13, and I'm still making a monthly payment on it. And it really occurred to me, I'm like, I'm not going to be driving the car much. If I was going to do performance driving, I've got the Corvette, and that's fully paid off, so why would I take this if I can take the Corvette? And thinking about it a little further, especially where I've been starting to think about other cars to replace the Mini, even outside of this, I thought the Mini's not really what I would pick at this point if I wanted a fun daily driver type car. It's great for the commuting, but remove the commuting and the fuel efficiency from the equation, and things change quite a bit. So I thought about it for a little while and ultimately arrived at the conclusion I don't need the Mini. I love it and it's a fun car, and every time I drive it I have a blast. It's really a great car, but I don't need it anymore. The commuting stuff also is kind of non-negotiable. Traditionally, I was spending about 4 to 5 hours in the car commuting when I was going into the office. And that's about 2 hours in door to door and up to 3 hours coming home door to door because of the traffic. Boston traffic is no joke. I mean, it's maybe not LA or anything. It's pretty bad. On top of that, instead of waking up at 7 a.m. every day, which is what I'm doing when I work from home, I wake up at 5 a.m. every day and I'm out the door by 6. So I'm literally getting 2 extra hours of sleep every single day. So instead of that, 6 or 7, I'm getting 8 to 9 hours, which that's a quality of life thing. That's pretty great. On top of all that, you have the costs. You have the gas, you have the parking, and then you have the subway in Boston. And so all of that added up together, and I was spending between $4,000 and $5,000 a year just to commute to my office, which is quite a lot. I think that most people would agree that's a lot of money. Then on top of that, I am currently taxed as a Massachusetts employee. The way that it works is I live in New Hampshire, which has no state income tax, but I work in Mass. And so what that means is that Massachusetts is going to tax me as if I lived there, essentially, and I'm taxed no differently than anybody else. And it's kind of a common misconception of, if you live in New Hampshire, you must not pay income taxes. That's only true if you live and work in New Hampshire. So I wasn't getting any benefit there. And so by living and working in New Hampshire and having my official status kind of changed to New Hampshire, I'm actually going to save thousands on taxes as well, because I'm going to be no longer paying Mass income tax. And as I mentioned, New Hampshire doesn't have a state income tax. So all of those things together, I'm getting more sleep. I'm saving 4 to 5 hours a day of time. That's 20 hours a week, give or take. And I'm going to save thousands of dollars, have more money in my pocket. So all of those reasons are great reasons to do the work from home. I'm still going to go in occasionally. I definitely want to see my friends. I want to get together for meetings and team stuff. And definitely the food in Boston is great. So a non-insignificant part of my wanting to come back in is to go and get lunches. So a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from Mini of Bedford. It's the place where I bought the car, and it said, hey, we'll buy back the car and you can put it towards a trade, or if you don't want a new car, we will literally buy the car outright. And so I was kind of intrigued, but at the time I hadn't applied for the work from home. I hadn't even really thought about it, but I saved the email just in case. And fast forward a couple weeks, and all of a sudden my whole situation has changed. I'm like, I don't actually need the car. So I emailed them and I got in touch with somebody from sales, and literally 10 minutes later I get a phone call from one of the managers, and he's like, yep, we'll buy the car outright, no problem. And I was like, okay. And they made a great offer on the car. Not only enough to pay off the loan, but I'm going to pocket a check for several $1,000s afterwards. And I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. And the way it basically works is I call my bank and get a payoff amount as well as where to send the money. The dealership does that, and they get the title mailed back to them. And then at that point, whatever the difference is between what they offered to pay and whatever I owe left on the car is cut to me as a check, and I walk away with the money. And so I'm headed there right now and gonna sell the Mini. I absolutely love this car, and it's kind of a weird feeling because I'm selling it without disliking it in any way. And if my situation was different, I certainly would have held on to the car longer. So to sum up my thoughts on the Mini, it's been a fantastic car. I've had no reliability issues of any kind. It's fast, it's fun to drive, it handles amazing. It handles like a hummingbird. And I honestly have enjoyed every second of ownership. Every time I go to the dealer, people are super friendly, really nice. They make you feel welcome. Driving the car is always a blast. It's easy to park, it's fuel efficient, but it still rips on back roads, when you get the opportunity. It's really a fantastic car, and I think a lot of people don't give it quite enough credit, and they think of it as this little tiny econo car, and they don't realize that the Cooper S, especially with the turbo, it's actually a legitimately fast car. This is right up there with a WRX as far as power to weight and handling. And it's actually kind of amazing all the times where somebody's pulled up next to me and then floored it to take off and they don't gain an inch on me in this thing. And frequently this thing's faster than other things. So that's always been kind of the party trick of this car, is that it looks fairly unassuming, but it's a blast to drive. And it's actually a great daily driver. It's got plenty of room to fill the back with groceries. I can carry my dog. It's a great car. Now, the downsides to this car, I haven't found many. I did a video on the things I don't like about it a while ago. But I would say the downsides are the visibility coming out through the windows is definitely, it's narrow. It's not Camaro narrow. That rhymes. It's not Camaro narrow, but you know, your visibility is a little bit limited because of the styling of the car. You have these kind of narrow side and front windows. And I will say that it takes the right type of person to cast aside kind of whatever their thoughts are of them, and to just objectively look at it as a fun car and not care about what the image is or how it looks or anything like that. Its styling is somewhat polarizing. Some people like it, some people don't like it, and there's not really a way to change that. Though I would say that anybody who test drives it certainly would probably have their opinion improved, at least. That I know it was for me. I've always liked how they looked, but I never really considered one. And when I test drove it, especially versus the Fiat 500 Abarth that I tried, this thing was head and shoulders better. It was more comfortable, it rides nicer, a lot more spacious, and it actually has that upmarket feel inside. It's, you know, certainly not a luxury car, but BMW did a good job designing and outfitting the interior, and I have no complaints in that regard. So I would say to anyone who's considering a Mini Cooper S or a Cooper, this is a third gen, this is a 2016 manual, I would say go and take a test drive if you're considering it. Even against a car that might have a little more space, I will guarantee you, unless you're looking at something like a Civic Type R, this is the more engaging car to drive. This is more fun, and ultimately it's going to meet 99% of your needs for day-to-day. Unless you're carrying a lot of people or tons of gear, this actually will meet most people's needs, whether they want to admit it to themselves or not. So on that note, I'm almost to the dealership, and this is the last drive, so well done, Mini. You've got a happy owner, and who knows, at some point I might pick up another one. But until next time, Fred out!